Hi guys, welcome to Office Blokes Reacts. I'm Office Bloke Dave.
I'm Office Bloke Mike.
I'm Office Bloke Daz.
And collectively, one of us is the pusher. You have to find out who. Keep watching.
Really?
We are the Office Blokes and we've got a Patreon page.
Yes, we have. Go and have a look at patreon.com. Put in Office Blokes React. And if you fancy supporting the channel like a load of people have done already, which we've been massively appreciated by us guys, go down there and check it out.
Yeah. And we've got a couple of other channels that you definitely need to go and look at.
Yeah, we've got Office Blokes Try, where we try different things from around the world, from jelly beans to spicy vodka to fermented sea herring.
Yeah. Grim stuff, good stuff. Poutine was a lovely one. Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah. Got some good things coming up this week as well on that. And we've got Office Blokes Podcast, where we do a podcast twice a week, once on a Friday, talking topical content, 6 p.m. British Standard Time, and one on a Tuesday. Comes out sometime in the afternoons, early evenings, where Mike and myself talk English Premier League football.
Yeah, good stuff. So we are also getting very close to the 100k mark. So like, subscribe, share with your mates, get us to 100k, because
you win a prize. If you're the 100,000 subscriber, you win a prize.
Whether you like it or not. It'll be amazing. We never thought we'd get to 100k in a million years, and we're getting close now. So definitely,
I didn't think we'd get to 1,000. If I'm being honest.
I was a bit worried about that, I must admit, but yeah, amazing. It's been great.
Yeah. Anyway, serial killer with more victims than any other killer in American history. The reason I introduced myself as the pusher is because there's a theory. I did?
You didn't. You said I'm Office Bloke Dave's one of us are the pusher.
Oh shit! I've just given it away, haven't I? Fuck. There's may or may not be a serial killer in the Greater Manchester area that may or may not be responsible for hundreds of deaths.
The canal pusher.
Yeah. Young men found floated in the canal after a night out. There's documentaries on it and everything. I wonder if this is going to be along the same vein.
Well, we've got in Manchester. We've got one of the biggest serial killers in history.
Yeah, Harold
Shipman, and there's another one that's just sort of like raising her head now. It's a woman. Similar sort of thing.
Women can kill too.
No, it's a similar sort of thing as what Shipman did.
Yeah,
kill people.
Yeah, Harold Shipman was my dad's mum's doctor, as I've said before.
Ken Dodd's dad's dog.
Ken Dodd's dad's dog. Yeah, whatever. Anyway, let's get into it.
Year-old Samuel Little sits across a table from a Texas Ranger, matter-of-factly describing how he took the lives of many of his victims. He's frail, wheelchair-bound, and has heart disease and diabetes. With armed guards around him, he talks about how he got away with over 90 murders in 19 states over a period of decades. He doesn't seem to have a care in the world, which is why he's been described as pure evil. From 1970 to 2005, this man traveled from state to state, covering much of the U.S. in search of vulnerable women that would satisfy his deranged needs. In 1971, in Kendall, Florida, there was a Sarah or Donna. He describes this Jane.
Why do these guys always go for women? It's the power trip thing, I guess.
What's a murder?
Yeah. I guess maybe there's a sexual element.
That's what I was just going to say. I think there might be probably something more to it than just. I don't think some people. I mean, some people do go out and just kill people.
If you're a fucking like psycho nutcase killer, you should go out and find other psycho nutcase killers and just duke it out, like have a proper battle.
If only they would.
That's what you do.
Leave them to it.
There's one in America that was a mafia hitman, but he was never made because he was of Polish descent, called Richard Kuklinski. The Iceman, he was called. They made movies about him and stuff. The movie was shit, to be fair. But I've got his book, like the autobiography that was done on him, biography, and that's unbelievable. But he went out looking for bad people when he was younger. That's how it all started. And then he was a hitman for the mafia. Didn't kill women, didn't kill children. You know, he's kind of like, he's obviously got something wrong in his head. Yeah. But he wasn't like just going and finding vulnerable women on the road.
I watch a lot of police shows that discuss this kind of thing.
Yeah. I like the psychology behind it. It's really interesting.
Doe perfectly, and then sketches her face for investigators. He does the same for a 25-year-old woman he says he met outside a strip club in 1984 when driving to Cincinnati. Slight of frame, short blonde hair, blue eyes, and with a look of what he calls a hippie. Her fate was sealed when she got in the car. These confessions, with their detailed descriptions, and it has to be said, fairly accomplished sketches, not only surprised investigators but rocked the USA. The authorities knew very well that Little wasn't making it up. Not all his confessions have been confirmed, but enough of them have for the FBI to announce that Mr. Little is the most prolific serial killer in US history. Before we get into some of those cases and how on earth he got away with his crimes, what do we know about Samuel Little, the child? We know he was born on June 7, 1940 in the small town of Reynolds, Georgia. This is a place that right now only has a population of just over 1,000, with almost a quarter of these people living below the poverty line. According to Little, he wasn't exactly born with a silver spoon in his mouth. Describing his mother's job of being a lady of the night, it's thought he was born in prison after his teenage mother had been arrested for plying what some people have called the oldest trade in the world. At one point, she gave up trying to look after her son and ditched him on the side of the road. That's a reason why, when growing up, Little spent a good deal of his time living with his grandmother in Lorain, Ohio. He attended Hawthorne Junior High School in Ohio, but it seems his grades were poor and behavior even poorer. He soon dropped out and set in motion what would become a lifetime of crime. At age 16,
shows how important it is to look after your kids, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I think, I'm not saying these people are all made, but you can definitely, he might have been predisposed to it, and he's just had such a shit life as a kid that...
Yeah, you get massively influenced, don't you, when you're younger by parents and family and friends and things like that. You know, it's a huge part of growing up, isn't it? And you know, a lot of these people just seem to have really terrible childhoods.
Yeah.
You know, really do.
Look after your kids. You hopefully you're going to get less people like this. You know, going out doing horrific stuff.
He was brought into a shit life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
In 1956, he was convicted of the crime of breaking and entering and spent some time in a juvenile detention center. 5 years later, he was sent to adult prison after being arrested for breaking into a Lorain furniture store. For the rest of his free life, he moved from state to state, occasionally holding down jobs, but always committing crimes. It's believed that before the man hit 35 years old, he was arrested at least 26 times in 11 states. Those crimes included assault, theft, fraud, DUI, breaking and entering, solicitation, armed robbery, shoplifting, aggravated assault on a police officer, and more. Little did the police know, though, by this time he'd...
See, all them offences are kind of like, apart from armed robbery, they're all kind of like minor.
Petty crime.
Petty crime, yeah.
I was just looking at them thinking how many of them are felonies, because they've got the 3 strikes and you're out rule in America.
I was just going to say that. I thought there was...
I don't know if that's in every state, though, is it?
I'm not sure.
And does it add in other states, or is it just in a state, but then doesn't...
I don't know.
I don't know. I think it's quite
Does
complicated.
it count in another state, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, does it carry over? So if you get one strike in California,
that's what I'm thinking. I'm looking at all those.
Georgia or whatever.
Can you imagine if you had 2 strikes, you'd be straight out of the state, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Moving somewhere else.
Yeah, that's it.
But they can all be associated with one kind of crime, really, can't they?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Trying to survive, by the look of it there, he's robbing, stealing, robbing people.
Yeah. It's
Assault,
petty theft. It's to stay alive, isn't it?
But
on the streets.
Armed robbery, I'm sure, is a felony. Aggravated assault on a police officer, I bet that's a felony.
Yeah, you'd think you'd get like pretty big custodial sentence just for stuff like that, wouldn't you? Really? So,
yeah.
Depends if he was
already
guilty.
started.
Sorry.
He was arrested for them. I don't know if he was guilty.
Yeah, they didn't say he was convicted of any of
that's a
these
good
things,
point.
did they?
Yeah.
Killing. By that time, the mid-70s rolled around. Stealing through the day and going out looking for women at night was how he spent many of his days. Those women were almost always African Americans living on the fringes of society. They were women who worked as prostitutes, or were addicted to drugs, or were homeless and living in shelters, or all of those things. Little once commented, "They was broke and homeless, and they walked right into my spiderweb." His modus operandi didn't often change in that he went to the places where the most vulnerable people could be found, and then he befriended women. Sometimes he'd offer them a ride in his car, sometimes he'd ask to go for a drink with them. At other times, he tempted them with the promise of drugs. Once they'd gotten into his car, they had a little chance of surviving. This was a strong man, a muscular man who'd fought as a light heavyweight boxer. He'd often knock his victims clean out before strangling them, an act which gratified his perverse desires. Sometimes he'd stroke their necks, feigning intimacy, kindness, and then his powerful hands would tighten around him. His crimes shouldn't have gone on for as long as they did, but as you'll find out later, his choice of a victim was very likely the reason why he could do what he did and get away with it. He almost came unstuck at the start, though. On September 11, 1976, a woman named Pamela K. Smith was found half naked, her hands tied behind her with electrical cord. Pounding on a stranger's house door, she screamed and shouted until someone came to help her. This woman, a drug addict, said Little had picked her up in the city of St. Louis. They'd driven around for a while and then parked in a quiet area. Little attacked her. She managed to escape, and soon the cops found Little still in his car. He denied any kind of sexual motive for the attack and said, in his own words, "I only beat her." For that crime, he spent just 3 months in the county jail. Had the woman not escaped, that could have been a murder. Had she not been in trouble with the law in the past for her heroin addiction and failing to turn up in court on occasions, Little might have been scrutinized a little more. In 1982, a mentally disabled woman named Patricia Ann Mount was found in Forest Grove, Florida. This woman, who had an IQ of just 40, was last seen dancing with a man in a tavern. That man was Samuel Little. He was acquitted of the crime, with a defense attorney stating there's more doubt than there is fact. Many years later, Little would let the authorities know that he indeed had committed that murder. She wasn't his only victim in Florida either. Then there was Melinda Rose Lapre. Her body was found in 1982 in Pascagoula, Mississippi. She'd been dead a long time, so the body was in a state of advanced decomposition, which didn't help investigators. The night she went missing, she'd been working as a prostitute. When she left the streets in a station wagon, other women on the street saw the man who was driving the car. They gave a description of him to the police, and so when 6 weeks later Little was picked up in a traffic stop, he was taken in for questioning. Not only did one of those women pick out his image in a photo lineup, but another woman came forward and said the same man had assaulted her in the past. The problem was, prosecutors said there was no physical evidence to link Little with the murder. They said a positive ID wasn't enough to take the case to trial, so Little was allowed to go. An even worse blemish on the justice system is the fact that the district attorney's office said it wasn't happy about prosecuting a man when the only witnesses were prostitutes. Investigator Darren Versiga later said that the police back then were hesitant to believe assault claims from black prostitutes. Such discrimination is of course sad and patently unethical, but it's not that unusual.
So racism played a part then?
Sounds like it, doesn't it?
Like
certainly an investigation, yeah.
I always think, same with cases over here where the district attorney office is involved in non-prosecution of something that's obviously guilty. Once it does go back, they should be investigated. People over here, we had like people like Cyril Smith over here and Jimmy Savile and people like that who have committed heinous crimes. When people like Keir Starmer, for example, who's the leader of the Labour Party now, was involved in the prosecution of Savile.
Really?
He was the.
I didn't know that.
No, I didn't know that.
I can't remember what title he held now. He was like the Crown Prosecution chief.
You think that should be investigated? Why?
Yeah,
they dropped.
Why
the
did
case?
They bring the charges forward and
everyone at the BBC and people like that should be. I mean, I know it's opening up now, and the can of worms is opening up, but it should be fucking escalating and sped up.
Yeah, because listen to things now. It seems to be that it was like an open secret, and everyone knew.
Yeah,
what was going on.
So if you knew and you didn't come forward, then you're part of the problem. So you're going to get arrested.
You know, people high up knew, didn't they? I think as well. You know, like in the BBC and stuff. You think, why? Why weren't they doing anything about it?
I know it said not at the level of that, but I'm talking about crime in general. You know?
Yeah. Well, you know, that we know of. Exactly. Like Jimmy Savile, the things he was doing, I wouldn't put it past him if there was a few bodies on his conscience as well. To be fair, it's it's horrific, isn't it?
They should be looked back at, and they should be prosecuted as well.
Yep.
Usual, and certainly wasn't so unusual in the past. You'll see there's a term in the world of crime called the less dead people. These are the folks that serial killers often prey on. They're the poorest, most disenfranchised citizens, folks who can go missing and no one even reports it. Sometimes they end up as Jane or John Does, even if the police do have an ID. Due to their low socioeconomic status, and in some cases their rap sheet, they might not exactly drum up a lot of sympathy from the public or be the most pressing cases for homicide detectives. They were seen as less alive, less valued before they died, and so when they did die, they became less dead, even though you'd think they'd elicit the most sympathy given their difficult circumstances. This is how one person described how law enforcement sometimes treats the less dead. A great deal less pressure is felt by the police when victims of crime come from the marginal elements. Samuel Little knew what he was doing by targeting society's most vulnerable. He talked about it once in an interview, saying, "I never killed no senators or governors or fancy New York journalists. Nothing like that. I kill a journalist, it'd be all over the news the next day. I stayed in the ghettos." The FBI has since said that many of his victims didn't look as though they'd been murdered. Since he punched and strangled the women, police often thought the cause of death was a drug overdose, or an accident, or death from natural causes. Still, others have written that police didn't look hard enough, and that's because the lives the women had led. Perhaps rather than rigorously scrutinize the cause of death, a death of a woman with a history of petty crime or drug use was sometimes overlooked. If you look at Little's many victims, almost every single one of them fits into the less dead category. We'll get around to them soon, but first let's see how Little was caught.
See, the women that are going to be doing stuff like this, and men, if that's what they want to do, they should have somewhere safe to do it. They shouldn't be on the streets getting picked up by weirdos that are going to murder them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Regulate it.
Yeah, 'cause it just goes on everywhere, doesn't it? Every major city in the world, it just goes on. So
it's never going to go away.
No, it's not. It's not. Is it? They don't call it the oldest profession for nothing, do they?
I disagree with that though, because how were the people paying him? There must have been an older profession for people to have money to pay the prostitutes.
Yeah.
So farming is the oldest profession, and the dirty farmers then went on to pay the prostitutes.
Yeah. They might not have paid them with money.
Carrots.
Might pay them with a house or
there you go,
somewhere to live or a cave.
Either way, it should be made safe for the women.
They tried it over here, didn't they? There was a place in Leeds. There was a street in Leeds that they legalised.
Like a red light district.
Yeah, and they legalised it. It didn't go very well. It made it worse.
I think when things are like a satellite that's doing it, it means dodgy people are going to travel to it. And this was a thing about...
It's going to be gang run then, isn't it?
Yeah.
I know it's gang run now for most part, but it's going to make it even worse. It's going to be larger gangs to run it.
This was a debate about... there was people talking about prostitution being legalised across Europe, and then it had stopped sex tourism going to Amsterdam and places like that where it's legal, and essentially get rid of the crime in Amsterdam as well, because they're not trafficking people in there. Because why? What's the point? Everyone can be where they're from and make their own decisions. It's just what's more important is people being safe, isn't it?
Yeah,
not getting murdered.
What annoyed me about that? Sorry, Mike, but
what
annoyed me about that was the valuation of life. That someone has a value on the life that's lesser than someone else.
Dead,
bullshit. Doesn't matter.
That's right.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Oh,
so
sorry.
No, that's fine. No,
If you look
saving
at
the job,
everyone's someone's son or daughter, aren't they, or brother or
absolutely,
sister?
Yeah.
Clearly, life.
Yeah, they were clearly looked on as not worth investigating, weren't they? And just not like. I don't know. It's just.
If it's someone who's committed the crime, what he's done, then he obviously has a lesser status of life in the woods. But if you're out free and you're just choosing to survive by doing stuff that's probably not legal, it can't be any less. Okay, you're wrong, as you say.
I wonder if,
but not to be murdered.
I wonder if back then quite a lot of the police officers might have been using prostitutes as well, and being like a more of a deprived area potentially, and then they see someone wind up dead and they're just like, well, we don't need to ask questions.
This still goes on now, mate.
I think even now, but even
it's still rife now.
70s and 80s, corruption, I think, in police forces probably all over the world. I think it was probably a lot worse than it is now.
I was asking this question yesterday to again. I said, what if I've got someone who wants to pay me money? If I've got someone who wants to give me business and I want to give them money as a reward for giving me business, I'm called corrupt. But if the police are asking for my information to lead to an arrest of somebody, they call that a reward, and that's okay. It's the same, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm helping them complete their job, whereas someone's helping me complete my job.
Yeah,
but I'm the corrupt one.
Yeah.
I know he's more corrupt than me.
Do you know what's more corrupt than everything is the fact that this is illegal, the prostitution and stuff, but put a camera there and it's porn and it's legal.
Yeah.
And it's the exact same thing, just with a camera.
We're going off tangent.
Yeah, slightly off
these videos we're doing recently are becoming more like podcasts.
Yeah.
1984, he was arrested in San Diego. He kidnapped one prostitute and left her for dead on a dirt road. And then a month after that, he was found on that same dirt road with an unconscious woman in his car. Both women had been hit hard and then choked, but both of them survived the ordeal. A jury couldn't reach a verdict, and Little in the end pled guilty to the crimes of false imprisonment and assault with great bodily injury. He was out after only 2.5 years, then moved to Los Angeles. During this time in the City of Angels, it's thought he killed at least another 10 women, and at one point was arrested for possession of cocaine. He never turned up in court and then fled LA. He moved around yet again and had many brushes with the law, although because the warrant for his drug possession charge was non-extraditable, he was never sent back to LA to face the charges. It wasn't until September 5th, 2012, when he was staying at a homeless shelter in Louisville, Kentucky, that his web of crime started to become untangled. An LAPD detective named Mitzi Roberts had been working on murder cases, and she found that Little's DNA could be connected to 2 murders. He eventually was extradited to California on a narcotics charge, and it's there that DNA testing linked him with a 3rd murder. Shortly after this, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement was in contact with police from Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia. Los Angeles detectives were talking to these people too, and it soon became apparent that this is the guy that could have killed the women from one coast of the US to the other. He was charged in 2013 for the murders of 3 women in LA. One had been found in a dumpster, another in a garage, and the 3rd down an alleyway. All 3 had been strangled. For those brutal crimes, he was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, all the time maintaining that he was an innocent man. It wasn't until 2018 when Little started dropping confession bombs. He was 78 and on the verge of death, and it's then that he started talking to law enforcement from various US states. These confessions solved the cases of many deaths police had deemed suspicious, as well as unsolved murders. Little had a good memory when it came to faces and how he'd killed each victim, although he wasn't always good with dates. What was surprising was the fact that he was able to accurately sketch many of the people he'd murdered. While cops might have suspected him to be behind a lot of murders, they weren't prepared for what he told them. They were in fact interviewing the most prolific serial killer in American history. There's such a thing as serial killers that have claimed to have killed many more people than they are convicted of killing. It's said serial killer Gary Ridgway might have killed many more than the 49 people he was convicted of killing, but that's not been proven. Richard Cottingham, aka the Butcher of Times Square, claimed to have killed 85 to 100 people during his 13 years hunting down women, but it remains to be seen if that's true. As for Little, it's now thought that he killed 93 people, but the FBI has said for now they can only confirm that he killed 60 women. It's likely he killed his first person back in 1970. The FBI had said this about Little's confessions. He remembers where he was and what car he was driving. He draws pictures of many of the women he killed. It's very likely he did kill 93 women, given his honesty about the other murders and the details he could recall, although corroborating his stories is still a work in progress. We'll give you some examples of what he told the FBI. The reason the FBI has put these examples on its website is so someone might be able to help them with their investigation. Maybe some of our viewers could be of help after.
Are they the real sketches that he's done?
Yeah.
Yes, it must be, yeah.
That's creepy.
Yeah.
That's really creepy.
Hearing this, Little said sometime between 1992 and 1994 he met an African-American woman in an area of Little Rock, Arkansas. He said it was a cold night and that it might have been snowing. The two went shoplifting together and Little was arrested for that. Police records corroborate the story. He got out of jail and went to move his car, which he said was a Cadillac Eldorado or a yellow Dodge. His accomplice was sleeping in the car. The next day, after driving down an old dirt road, he stopped the car and committed the murder. He told police that he dumped the body near a cornfield. The problem is, Little couldn't remember her full name. He said he thought her first name was Ruth, but he wasn't sure. He was also able to sketch her face. Then there was the African-American woman who he said he met in 1982 in New Orleans. He described her as being 30 to 40 years old, 5'8" to 5'9" inches tall, and weighing in the region of 160 pounds. He said her skin was honey-colored brown and her hair was medium length. She was in a club celebrating someone's birthday when they met. Little and the woman left the club in a Lincoln Continental Mark III. She told him that she lived with her mom and that her mom was either very sick or an invalid since the woman had to look after her. Together, they drove toward an area called Little Woods and took the exit off I-10. He said he drove down a dirt road where the canal was being dredged. He killed her and left her body next to the canal. He drew a picture of her, too. It was 1971 or 1972 when he met another one of his victims.
This is all absolutely horrific, but the fact that she's a carer for a mum who's either sick or an invalid, and then you're taking away someone's only source of a life as well.
I don't think he thinks about things like that.
No, well, this is
Probably last thing on his mind, isn't it? Someone like this.
next level detachment, isn't it? This is like full-blown psycho.
Absolutely no empathy or anything of the people like this.
He's getting off and just killing people.
I hope he's not one of those who finds God at the end and repents and thinks he's going to heaven.
He doesn't deserve it,
And
does he?
I hope if he tries to do, the priest just comes in, sets him on fire.
No more than he deserves, really, is it? To be fair.
It's hard watching, isn't it? I'm grinding my teeth watching this.
Terrible, isn't it? Yeah.
This time in Miami, Florida. He said she was an 18 to 19-year-old African-American transgender person named Marianne or Marion. She was 5'6" to 5'7" inches tall and weighed around 140 pounds. The two met at a place called the Pool or Pool Palace, which Little said was on 17th Avenue in Miami. It wasn't until a few days later that they met again. This time the location was the historic Overton neighborhood. During these meetings, he said he learned that she lived with a bunch of roommates in either Brownsville or Liberty City. Little said he turned up at that house and one of the roommates asked him to go out and buy some shaving cream. He agreed and set off in his gold four-door Pontiac Le Mans. Except he had no intention of buying the cream. Instead, he and Marianne headed north on Highway 27. He said he stopped the car close to the sugarcane field and killed her there in someone's driveway. He then continued down Highway 27 until he reached the Everglades. He turned down a dirt road until he arrived at the river or a swamp. He dragged the body through the mud and the water and left the scene. These are just a few of the unmatched confessions. Others have been matched and murders have been solved. although in some cases the bodies were never identified, so they're still Jane Doe's. It's uncertain how much guilt Little felt for what he'd done. Sometimes he smiled a lot while being interviewed. There was certainly no trace of remorse or shame in his voice or his face. He also once said he didn't fear God for what he'd done. "I live in my mind now with my babies in my drawings," he said in one interview. By his babies, he was perversely referring to the women he'd heartlessly murdered. He also said in that interview, "The only things I was ever good at was drawing and fighting." In fact, that's how he sometimes lured women, telling them that they were beautiful and then promising to employ his formidable artistic skills to draw them. He did just that to the victim in Odessa, Texas. He kept his promise, but she was already dead when he sketched her. Little died on December 30th, 2020. The cause of death wasn't reported in the media, although he was a sick man, a very sick man. Now you need to watch The Most Shocking Unsolved Mysteries in the World, or have a look at FBI confirms.
I hope he fucking suffered in prison. I bet he didn't.
That's
though.
absolutely hideous.
Sounds like a big guy, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just one of them where I bet he was in like protective custody or something and just on his own all day.
Would have been, wouldn't they? Yeah.
Let him out to the general population, people like that.
I don't think they would. He's more dangerous than them, probably.
I don't know. It's just a fucking knock.
Just wonder what goes through the minds, don't you?
Say,
People, I mean, it's just, it's absolutely hideous, isn't it? It really is.
Interesting, though.
I've
never heard of it.
Yeah. I mean, there's potentially a tangent in that the sort of, I'm interested in the psychology of people like that, what's made them the way they are, and how can you try and stop people being like that? Or
do you think it's just, the way you're brought up with relations and things, or do you think some of it is you're born like that, or do you think there's something in there that just triggers these people? Or
I think, and this is based off no science whatsoever, I think you're born with wires in your brain in a certain way, just like people can be gay or straight, people can be more predisposed to being a psycho or empathetic or whatever, and then I think it's nurtured by being abused as a kid and
so you got to have the right buttons pushed basically to
I don't know,
to be like a well-rounded human being
I think your brain is constantly forging new connections and stuff, so I think it's malleable. It can be, I think you could be a really empathetic kid and grow up to be a psycho if you're abused, for example. I think that's definitely a thing, but I don't know.
I don't think it comes necessarily down just to abuse and things like that. I think your mind's a very powerful thing that connects to different things that you experience.
Absolutely.
Or you even see in a movie, or you see, you hear something, or you read
just certain
something.
Triggers and
could be anything.
Sends you off on the wrong direction.
I think if they knew, if the scientists knew and the medics knew, then they wouldn't be serial killers, would they? You wouldn't have these people.
I don't think there's ever going to be a way to know. To be fair,
probably not.
All you can do is just try and keep kids as safe as possible.
Yeah,
good upbringing. And hopefully they're not going to grow up to be fucking psychos.
Just everyone be nice to each other.
Absolutely.
Is the way to
That's the best way to go.
Look after each other.
Yeah, but don't get into cars with strangers.
It's all that at an early age, though, aren't you?
Yeah.
But people still do. You do when an Uber driver.
I've never spoke to my kids about it, to be fair.
No.
I've never. I mean, they're 5 and 3. I don't know what age you have conversations like that, but I've never had a conversation like that.
It's taught at school as well. They know about strangers and things like that at such a young age. But I don't know. It's nowadays the world's changed anyway. So Uber drivers now, you're getting in a car with a stranger every time you transport someone, aren't you?
Absolutely, yeah. Of course you are. Yeah.
You don't ask for a full sort of like list of what a resume of the driver, do you?
Yeah.
I mean, you just get in.
Yeah, you don't know. It could be anyone.
And also, do you have to be DBS checked to be an Uber driver?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is,
I would guess so.
I think you're missing what I'm saying here. That Uber driver might not be the Uber driver you've ordered.
Oh no, that's a big thing.
Someone turns up and you see you waiting on the side. Are you waiting for Uber? Yeah. What's your name? Dave. Yeah, get in.
Yeah, it's for you.
And you've got what is it? Just an Uber sticker on the side of the door, and you're in the car.
And to be fair, a lot of taxi drivers do share licenses as well. Yeah. So you'll have one taxi that's licensed, and that taxi will be driving 24 hours a day under three different drivers.
Yeah. Of course you do. Yeah.
Not always legit, so it could be anyone that's driving. Yeah.
And people say ask for the driver's ID and all that. I always say to my family, when you get an Uber, just take a picture of the number and just send it to me.
Yeah.
It's there and just DM it to me or whatever.
I think there should be an app or something that drops a pin wherever you are. Like on Google Maps, you can drop a pin.
You can do that now with the share. You can share your ride on Uber with whoever you want.
Yeah. But I mean, it's literally a security app where something sketchy's happening, you think you're being followed or something, you can drop a pin, or it could be like a silent alert. And essentially, it's your last known location. Because if you were around at someone's house and the person's being sketchy and you're scared for your life, you drop a pin, and then it could be literally like, look, I've checked in. It seems checking in on Facebook or whatever. I've checked in at your house. Anything happens, where do you think the cops are going to go?
There's a thing now. I was watching it on TV the other day, on like a Crime Watch type show, where I think it was Crime Watch I was watching, where they have, if you dial 999, they can call live to you with your phone, and you can actually video the scene. And they're watching it live as they're talking to the emergency guy.
Wow.
So they'll be getting the police here, talking to you and watching it live off your phone on the screen.
Yeah.
I thought about that with Facebook as well. If someone's trying to mug you or whatever, and you go live on Facebook and film them, that's out there now.
Yeah.
And it's like, you do whatever you're going to do. Your face is out there. You're getting caught.
Yeah. So hopefully it cuts down on this kind of situation with murders and bad crimes like this. But I mean, all crime's bad, but it's different. Worse than other.
Yeah. I mean, that's as bad as it gets.
I think the advancements in technology and DNA tests and stuff like that, obviously after the event, obviously they're a lot quicker to sort of like close these things down now, aren't they? I think,
still happens.
But the problem is, it still happens, doesn't it? So it's trying to get there before it actually happens, isn't it? I suppose.
What if the pusher is a real serial killer and is responsible for hundreds of deaths, like you say, and is just down the road, and there's nothing, you know what I mean? There's no one being caught or anything. Unofficially, there's a few cops that have said that it's a real thing.
Don't walk down the canal.
I walk down the canal all the time.
Yeah,
I do it in my house as well.
There's loads of canal routes around this area, so, but it's I don't know. Modern technology should eliminate most of it. Or keep all male adults in after 6:30 at night.
That's true. Absolutely,
that's an option.
Yeah, and all the pubs shut down overnight.
It's just everyone will just rotate the working lives, wouldn't they? Okay. But anyway, I hope you guys like that too. Don't forget, like and subscribe, hit the bell, join us on the other channels as well, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Cheers, guys.